The moment you realize comfort isn't peace, it feels safe. That's the first thing you notice. Your life isn't chaotic. There's no crisis unfolding, no dramatic collapse. You wake up, you follow your routine, you handle what needs to be handled. Nothing is on fire, and yet something feels slightly off. Not painful, just contained. You tell yourself this is what peace looks like. Stability, predictability, low conflict. But peace doesn't usually feel tight. And lately, there's a quiet tightness in your chest. Not anxiety, not panic, just a subtle restriction. Your days are smooth, almost too smooth. You've eliminated friction, avoided difficult conversations, chosen familiar paths, stayed where things are fine. Fine feels responsible. Fine feels mature. Fine feels safe. But fine doesn't feel expansive. It doesn't feel alive. You're not excited. You're not deeply engaged. You're just comfortable. Comfort keeps you insulated. It minimizes risk. It reduces unpredictability. And at first that feels like relief. After seasons of stress, comfort feels earned. But relief is not the same as peace. Relief is the absence of pressure. Peace is the presence of alignment. And alignment has a different texture. It feels open. It feels breathable. It feels connected. If you're honest, your comfort doesn't feel open. It feels contained, like you've designed your life to avoid disturbance. What if the calm you're protecting isn't real calm? What if it's just controlled quiet? There's a moment when you start to sense it. This isn't peace. It's comfort. Comfort is seductive. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It slips in quietly, through small decisions. You choose the familiar restaurant, the predictable weekend, the conversation that won't cause tension. You avoid the topic that might create friction. You postpone the risk that might shake things up. You stay where things are good enough. And nothing breaks. Nothing explodes. Nothing forces you to change. That stability feels responsible, mature, controlled. But over time, you notice something subtle. You're no longer anxious, but you're not inspired either. You're no longer stressed, but you're not growing. Your world becomes smaller, not because it collapses, but because you've trimmed it down to what feels manageable. Manageable feels safe. Safe feels smart. But smart decisions don't always create a meaningful life. Comfort slowly teaches your nervous system that avoidance equals safety. If it's familiar, it must be secure. If it's predictable, it must be peaceful. But familiarity and peace are not the same. Familiar tension can feel calmer than unfamiliar possibility. So you choose what you know, even if what you know keeps you slightly confined. You tell yourself, I don't need more. I'm fine like this. I don't want drama. And maybe that's true. But peace isn't the absence of drama. It's the presence of congruence. Congruence between what you value and how you're living. Comfort reduces external noise. Peace expands internal space. One narrows, the other opens. If you're paying attention, you can feel the difference. Your brain loves comfort, not because it's lazy, but because it's protective. The nervous system is wired to prefer familiarity over uncertainty. Familiar patterns, even imperfect ones, feel predictable. Predictability lowers perceived threat. Lower threat means lower stress. Lower stress feels like relief, and relief can easily be mistaken for peace. But relief is temporary. Peace is structural. Relief happens when pressure decreases. Peace happens when alignment increases. Those are not the same thing. When you choose comfort repeatedly, your system reinforces a pattern. Avoid what might disrupt. Stay where outcomes are known. Minimize variables. Reduce exposure. At first, this makes sense. After chaos, stability is medicine. After heartbreak, predictability feels grounding. After failure, smaller risks feel wise. But what begins as recovery can quietly become confinement. Your nervous system doesn't differentiate between growth discomfort and genuine danger. Uncertainty triggers similar signals: increased heart rate, heightened alertness, cognitive scanning. So when an opportunity arises that could stretch you, your body reacts as if something is wrong. Not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. Familiarity feels calm. Expansion feels activating. Activation can be misread as anxiety, and anxiety is often interpreted as a sign to retreat. So you retreat. You choose what feels neutral. You tell yourself you're protecting your peace, but sometimes you're protecting your comfort. There's a subtle difference. Peace can coexist with activation. Comfort avoids activation entirely. Peace allows uncertainty without collapsing. Comfort avoids uncertainty to prevent activation. The moment you start to notice this is uncomfortable in itself, You realize how many decisions were guided by tension avoidance. The job you stayed in because it was stable. The relationship you maintained because it wasn't chaotic. The routine you repeated because it felt manageable. None of these choices were reckless. They were rational, responsible, measured. But measured living can quietly reduce your emotional range. You stop feeling the highs because you've minimized the lows. You stop experiencing novelty because novelty carries risk. You stop expanding because expansion feels destabilizing. Your world becomes controlled, and control feels like maturity, until it begins to feel restrictive. You might notice it in small ways. You hesitate before speaking your real opinion. You delay initiating conversations that matter. You downplay your ambitions to avoid potential disappointment. You talk yourself out of creative impulses because they seem impractical. None of this looks dramatic. It looks sensible. But slowly your life becomes optimized for comfort. And optimization for comfort often means reduction of friction. Friction is uncomfortable, but friction is also where growth happens, where energy is generated, where depth is formed. Without friction, life can become smooth, and smooth can become stagnant. Stagnation doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows up as subtle boredom, mild restlessness, a vague sense that something is missing. Not missing externally, missing internally, because growth generates aliveness. Aliveness requires some degree of activation, not chaos, not instability, but activation. The kind that stretches you, the kind that makes you slightly uncertain, the kind that forces presence. Comfort eliminates that activation. It minimizes surprises. It reduces variability. It keeps everything within tolerable range. And while that feels stable, it can also dull your sense of engagement. You begin to confuse low stimulation with inner calm. But calm has depth. Calm feels open. Calm allows curiosity. Comfort often feels contained. Contained energy doesn't move freely. It circulates within boundaries. Boundaries can protect, but they can also restrict. The brain prioritizes energy efficiency. If a path feels known and low risk, it consumes less cognitive load. Less load feels easier. Easier feels appealing. But ease without expansion can eventually feel empty. You may not feel distressed. You may not feel unhappy, but you also don't feel deeply engaged. You're not lit up. You're not curious. You're not stretching. You're simply stable. Stability is valuable, but stability without growth can become slow suffocation, not dramatic suffocation. Gradual, almost invisible. You don't notice it day to day. You notice it when you pause long enough to ask yourself a quiet question. Am I at peace, or am I just comfortable? That question lands differently. Peace feels earned through alignment. Comfort feels maintained through avoidance. Peace requires courage. Comfort requires caution. Caution is not wrong, but when caution becomes default, you start to live defensively. Defensive living prioritizes protection over possibility, and possibility is where aliveness lives. The realization moment is subtle. You recognize that you've been protecting yourself from discomfort so effectively that you've all protected yourself from expansion. You've created a life that doesn't hurt, but it also doesn't stretch. You've minimized chaos, but you've also minimized intensity. You've reduced risk, but you've also reduced discovery. This isn't a call to abandon structure. Structure is necessary. This isn't a call to chase instability. Instability is not peace. This is simply an invitation to differentiate between absence of disturbance and presence of depth. They feel similar on the surface, but internally, they are entirely different experiences. And the moment you realize that difference is the moment comfort loses its disguise. The realization doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't crash into your life. It seeps in. Maybe it happens during an ordinary moment. You're sitting in a space you once worked hard to reach. The job is stable. The relationship is steady. The routine is structured. There's no emergency, no chaos demanding attention. And yet, there's a faint sense of compression. Like you're breathing, but not deeply. Like you're living, but not expanding. That compression is subtle. It doesn't scream dissatisfaction. It whispers stagnation. You begin to notice that you've designed your life to minimize unpredictability. You avoid conflict. You avoid bold decisions. You avoid exposing yourself to outcomes you can't control. And while that protects you from disappointment, it also protects you from exhilaration. Protection has been your strategy. Protection from failure. Protection from rejection. Protection from instability. And protection works. It keeps things calm. But calm that's built on avoidance feels different than calm built on confidence. Avoidant calm feels tight. Confident calm feels open. One restricts. The other allows. You might realize that you haven't felt deeply challenged in a long time. Not challenged in a destructive way, but challenged in a stretching way. The kind that expands your capacity. The kind that makes you slightly uncomfortable because it asks more of you. Comfort tells you to stay where you are. Peace tells you that you can move without losing yourself. That's the conflict. Comfort keeps your world predictable. Peace allows your world to evolve. You start to notice that your decisions are guided more by will this disrupt me than by does this align with me. Alignment is about truth. Disruption is about fear. When fear quietly governs your choices, your life becomes optimized for containment. You contain your ambitions to avoid vulnerability. You contain your opinions to avoid tension. You contain your desires to avoid risk. Containment feels responsible, but it can slowly erode vitality. Vitality requires friction. Not destructive friction, but honest friction. The kind that emerges when you stretch beyond familiar limits. Without that friction, you begin to feel underutilized. Not externally, internally. Like there's more in you than what you're expressing. More curiosity, more depth, more courage. But those qualities remain dormant because activating them would require uncertainty. Uncertainty activates your nervous system. Activation feels uncomfortable, so you interpret that discomfort as a warning sign. You retreat back into predictability. This cycle repeats quietly. You maintain your comfort. You avoid the edge. You preserve stability. And gradually, your life becomes very controlled. Controlled is not chaotic, but it's not expansive either. You might notice that your conversations feel rehearsed. Your responses feel measured. Your days feel structured, but uninspired. You're not suffering, but you're not stretching. And stretching is where aliveness lives. The moment you realize comfort isn't peace often arrives when something small triggers awareness. Maybe you watch someone take a risk. Maybe you feel a flicker of envy when someone speaks boldly. Maybe you feel a quiet longing when you imagine a different version of yourself. That longing is important. Longing signals possibility. Possibility feels activating. Activation feels uncomfortable, and discomfort tempts you to withdraw. But what if that activation isn't danger? What if it's growth trying to emerge? Peace doesn't eliminate activation. It stabilizes you within it. Comfort eliminates activation to prevent instability. One grows you. The other contains you. You start to see how often you've chosen containment. Not because you're weak, but because you value safety. Safety matters. But safety without expansion can slowly become stagnation. Stagnation doesn't hurt sharply. It dulls gradually. You feel slightly disengaged, slightly restless, slightly underchallenged. That slightly becomes your baseline. You adapt to it. You normalize it. You call it peace. But peace doesn't feel flat. Peace feels grounded and alive at the same time. Grounded doesn't mean static. Alive doesn't mean chaotic. They coexist. Comfort often trades aliveness for predictability. Predictability reduces risk, but it also reduces surprise. And surprise is part of meaning. Meaning emerges when you confront uncertainty and remain present, not when you eliminate uncertainty entirely. The realization can be unsettling. You recognize that the calm you've been protecting might actually be avoidance in disguise. Avoidance of difficult conversations. Avoidance of creative risk. Avoidance of change. Avoidance of growth. You're not wrong for wanting comfort. After hardship, comfort is necessary. But if you remain there too long, comfort becomes a ceiling. And ceilings restrict upward movement. Peace doesn't cap your growth. It supports it. Peace allows expansion without internal collapse. Comfort prevents expansion to avoid internal discomfort. That's the distinction. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to question your decisions differently. Not will this disturb me, but will this align me? Alignment may feel activating, but activation is not the enemy. It's information. Information that something matters. When something matters, you feel it. Feeling means you're engaged. Engagement means you're alive. Comfort keeps you safe. Peace allows you to grow safely. And that difference is where transformation begins. The shift doesn't begin with a dramatic decision. It begins with a subtle honesty. You stop calling every stable moment peace. You begin asking better questions. Not is this safe, but is this true? Truth feels different than comfort. Truth may activate you. Truth may stretch you. Truth may make your voice shake slightly, but truth has expansion in it. Comfort has containment. You don't have to abandon your stability. You don't have to burn down your life. This isn't about chaos. It's about calibration. You start noticing the moments when you shrink, the conversation you avoid, the idea you don't share, The opportunity you downplay. You feel the contraction in your chest. That contraction used to mean retreat. Now you pause. What if this contraction isn't danger, but growth? That question alone changes your trajectory, because growth often feels activating. Your heart beats a little faster. Your thoughts become louder. Your body becomes alert. You've been trained to interpret that activation as anxiety. But activation can also mean alignment. Something matters. Something is stretching you. Something is expanding your edges. Peace doesn't eliminate activation. It gives you enough internal stability to stay present while activated. That's the difference. Comfort tells you to withdraw the moment you feel tension. Peace allows you to remain without losing yourself. You start experimenting in small ways. You say the honest sentence. You ask the difficult question. You try the thing that feels slightly risky. Not recklessly, but intentionally. You let yourself feel the discomfort without immediately correcting it. And something surprising happens. You don't collapse. You don't lose control. You don't unravel. The activation rises and then settles. Your system learns something new. Discomfort is tolerable. Stretching is survivable. Uncertainty doesn't equal danger. Each time you remain present in that stretch, you widen your capacity. Capacity is what peace is built on. Not avoidance, not insulation. Capacity. The ability to experience intensity without fragmenting. Comfort avoids intensity. Peace integrates it. Integration feels different. It feels grounded and alive simultaneously. You might notice a quiet energy returning. Curiosity. Interest. A subtle spark. Not overwhelming passion. Just movement. Movement where there was stagnation. Breath where there was tightness. Expansion where there was containment. You realize that your life doesn't need to be dramatic to feel meaningful. It just needs to feel honest. Honesty sometimes disturbs comfort, but it deepens peace. Peace isn't the absence of tension. It's the presence of alignment within tension. Comfort keeps everything smooth. Peace allows texture. Texture is where growth happens. Growth is where vitality returns. And vitality is what you were missing. Not safety, not structure, vitality. The moment you realize comfort isn't peace is not the moment you abandon safety. It's the moment you stop confusing containment with calm. And once you see that difference, you begin choosing expansion over insulation. Not all at once, but one honest decision at a time. As you begin choosing expansion in small ways, you start to feel something unfamiliar. Not chaos, not instability, but movement. Movement where things used to feel still. It's subtle at first. A slight increase in awareness. A sharper sense of your own reactions. You notice when something excites you. You notice when something unsettles you. Before, you would have smoothed those reactions out. Now, you let them register. Registration is the beginning of presence. Presence changes how you move through your day. You're no longer trying to eliminate friction at all costs. You're discerning which friction is destructive and which friction is developmental. Destructive friction drains you. It diminishes you. It disconnects you from yourself. Developmental friction stretches you. It challenges you. It activates growth. Learning to differentiate the two is part of maturing beyond comfort. Comfort treats all tension as threat. Peace evaluates tension through alignment. You begin asking new questions. Does this discomfort mean something is wrong? Or does it mean something is growing? That shift in interpretation reduces unnecessary retreat. You don't run from every spike in your nervous system. You don't assume activation equals danger. You remain curious. Curiosity transforms fear into information. Instead of saying, I need to get out of this, you ask, what is this teaching me? Sometimes the answer is clear. You realize a conversation needs to happen. A boundary needs to be drawn. A risk needs to be taken. Other times the answer is simply endurance. Staying present long enough for discomfort to metabolize. Metabolizing emotion is different from suppressing it. Suppression tightens. Metabolizing softens. When you metabolize activation, you allow it to rise, peak, and settle. You don't escalate it with catastrophic thinking. You don't drown it in distraction. You breathe, you feel, you stay. And staying builds capacity. Capacity builds confidence. Confidence stabilizes peace. Peace grounded in capacity doesn't require insulation. It doesn't require shrinking your world. It doesn't require eliminating risk. It allows risk within resilience. Resilience isn't rigid. It's flexible. Comfort is rigid. It holds tightly to predictability. Resilience bends without breaking. You start noticing that your life feels slightly wider. Conversations feel less rehearsed. Your responses feel less calculated. You don't over-edit your words as much. You allow yourself to be seen without perfectly curating the moment. There's vulnerability there, but it doesn't feel destabilizing anymore. It feels real. Realness has energy. Energy has movement. Movement restores vitality. Vitality reminds you that you're alive. Alive doesn't mean ecstatic. Alive means engaged. Engaged with your own reactions. Engaged with uncertainty. Engaged with growth. You may still choose stability, but now you choose it consciously, not reflexively. There's a difference between choosing calm and defaulting to comfort. Choosing calm feels empowered. Defaulting to comfort feels defensive. Empowerment expands you. Defensiveness contracts you. You begin noticing contraction more quickly, a subtle tightening in your chest when you're about to avoid something meaningful. A mental narrative that says, it's easier not to. You don't shame that impulse. You understand it. It protected you once. It helped you survive periods that demanded control, but you're no longer only surviving. You're living. Living requires different muscles. Muscles of courage, muscles of tolerance, muscles of presence. You strengthen those muscles each time you remain in alignment despite mild discomfort. Alignment feels steady and expansive, not smooth and numb. You might notice that your version of peace evolves. Peace used to mean low stimulation. Now peace means internal steadiness, even when stimulation rises. Peace used to mean minimizing friction. Now peace means navigating friction without losing yourself. That's a profound shift, because it means your peace is no longer dependent on external control. It's anchored internally, anchored in self-trust. Self-trust grows when you experience discomfort and discover you can handle it. Each time you stretch and remain intact, your nervous system recalibrates. It no longer treats every unfamiliar path as danger. It recognizes growth as tolerable. Tolerable becomes manageable. Manageable becomes normal. Normal becomes expansive. Your life doesn't explode into dramatic transformation. It unfolds differently. You take opportunities you would have declined. You speak truths you would have softened. You pursue interests you would have postponed. Not recklessly, but honestly. Honesty is the bridge between comfort and peace. Comfort avoids what feels unstable. Peace integrates what feels meaningful. The moment you realize comfort isn't peace is the moment you stop mistaking containment for calm. From there, you build something deeper. A life that still holds structure, but also breathes. Breath is the sign. If your life feels tight and compressed, it may be comfortable. If it feels grounded and spacious, it may be peace. Spaciousness allows growth. Growth generates aliveness. Aliveness sustains meaning. And meaning is what you are seeking beneath the surface of safety. You don't need to abandon comfort entirely. You simply need to stop worshiping it. Let comfort be rest, not residence. Let peace be your foundation, not avoidance. And from that foundation, you move forward, not protected from life, but participating in it. There comes a quiet moment when you see it clearly. You weren't chasing peace, you were preserving comfort. Comfort kept your life orderly, predictable, low risk. It shielded you from unnecessary pain, and for a while that was necessary. But shielding isn't the same as living. Living requires exposure, not reckless exposure. Honest exposure. Exposure to growth. Exposure to truth. Exposure to discomfort that expands you. Peace doesn't ask you to eliminate friction. It asks you to trust yourself within it. Comfort eliminates friction entirely. Peace strengthens you through it. That's the difference. You don't need chaos to feel alive. You don't need instability to grow. You just need space. Space for curiosity. Space for honesty. Space for the stretch that once scared you. When you choose alignment over insulation, your life begins to breathe again. Not louder, not dramatically, just deeper. You feel more present in conversations, more grounded in decisions, more aware of your own reactions. There's subtle vitality returning, the kind that doesn't scream, but hums quietly beneath everything you do. You realize that peace was never about silence. It was about steadiness. Steadiness that allows movement. Steadiness that supports growth. Steadiness that holds discomfort without panic. Comfort kept you safe. Peace lets you expand safely. Comfort narrows your world to protect you. Peace widens it because you trust yourself. That trust changes everything. You no longer ask, will this disturb me? You ask, will this grow me? And growth, when grounded in self-trust, feels alive. Alive feels meaningful. Meaningful feels peaceful. The moment you realize comfort isn't peace is the moment you stop hiding from expansion. You stop confusing quiet with alignment. You stop protecting yourself from becoming more. And instead, You begin participating in your own evolution, not frantically, not forcefully, but intentionally. Let comfort be rest, let peace be strength, and let growth be the quiet evidence that you are no longer just preserving your life, you are inhabiting it.